Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima. Welcome back to Blue Boards. This time we're going to be checking out Seven Wonders Architects by Antoine Bauza. That's probably not how you pronounce that, he sounds like a Mario villain. Anyway, this is a easy to learn re-implementation of the Seven Wonders series, and at least the concept behind it of building out your civilization, or in this case your wonder, by collecting resources, researching technology, earning points, and getting into fights every now and again. This is a really simple game to understand, but at the same time, it also has multiple paths to victory, which is really nice, and I'll take the opportunity to demonstrate them all to you right now. So you've got your decks here, and on your turn, you can pick from the deck to your left, the deck to your right, or the mystery deck. And the mystery deck is just all the cards that are in these decks, but there's a lot more of them, so I won't bother showing you cards from that. So, you have multiple different types of cards. This is a resource. You take this resource and you put it in front of you. If you have at any time the resources you need to build a stage of your wonder, you immediately build that stage, trying not to knock the rest of the construction off, and then you discard all of the resources in question to the discard pile. This gives you points, but of course this means you have to start building up your resources again, and the further up your wonder that you get, the harder that it becomes to build it out. However, it is worth the most points and can also activate some special abilities, which are unique to each civilization. Like over on the left there, we've got, you get the card from the top deck on your left and on your right. On the right there, you've got pick a card from the top of any deck, and here we've got get any technology, which we'll get to in a bit. You do also have gold cards, which count as a wild resource, but of course you do need to actively build anything if that wild can be substituted for anything that would let you build. You also have research, and if you play a research, if you get 3 unique symbols or a pair of symbols, so let's just say we actually got a pair of symbols there, you would discard those symbols and get yourself a technology, and the technologies can do anything from earning you bonus points to letting you get extra bonus card plays based on resource cards that you play out, and there is just stuff that gives you bonus points for every card you have a specific type as well. So there are a fair few ways of playing around that depending on what comes out here, because you can pick any of the 3 or top deck something. So if we top deck, we can see, hey, every combat you win gives you an extra victory point, which might actually be useful depending on the situation. You do also have cards that just flat out give you victory points. Pretty simple to understand. You do also have one that gives you a cat. The cat goes basically anywhere it wants, because there's a ton of those cards in the game. You can see one over there. And the cat basically just lets you have a look at the top card of the mystery deck at the beginning of your turn. So you can use it to determine whether or not the card there is actually something useful for you. And then you've got combat, which is one of the more interesting parts of the game. So here you've got standing combat. This stays with you for the rest of the game. So if we plop that down there, we now have a combat strength of 4. We do also have cards that give you horns. These are not permanent. Whenever anyone just has enough of blowing horns and they decide it's time to throw punches, they will go away. However, they will add to your combat strength for the upcoming battle. And you also have to flip those over to indicate the oncoming fight. And notably, our group has the rule that you need to make the horn sound as you do it. Now, I've played this game with a blind man a couple of times, and every time that we have, he has made the absolute pitch-perfect recreation of a goose's honk, because he's blind, and apparently blind people are really good at recreating sounds. You've never lived until you've heard a blind man recreate a goose honk. Anyway, so when all of these fill up, and let's just pretend that that happened, you compare the combat strength of your neighbors, and if you win against a neighbor, you get one of these little tokens, which gives you a bit of extra VP. So in this case, I'd actually win against both, because I have 2 here from my technology, standing combat, and 3 more here, giving me a total of 5. So I beat the 3 over here and the 1 over here. The 3 over here doesn't beat this one, but it does beat the 1 to its right. So he does get an extra little bit victory points there. And poor guy over here doesn't get anything. He just gets to sit there and wait. And that's genuinely the entire game. The person who completes their wonder first just triggers the end of the game immediately, and then you count up your points from your wonder, your techs, your blue cards, your combat wins, and whoever has the most VP is the winner. And that's genuinely the ways that you can win. You can just build up on points. You can try and build up your wonder, gaining the special abilities along the way. And all the wonders are different. Giza is the boring one. They're just a big fat pyramid that doesn't get anything, but all the other ones get some bonus stuff as well, whether it be some standing combat, take the top card of the central deck, take the top card of any deck, take the top 5 cards from the left or the right, pick one, shuffle the rest back into the deck. So they've all got a little bit of flexibility and they're all just that little bit more useful. But it is kind of let down by the fact that the game is pretty much random. You shuffle all these decks at the beginning of the game and sometimes you're just not getting what you want. Notably, you do have the opportunity sometimes to stop the opponent from getting what they want. Like imagine that they wanted this paper, I could take this paper instead, but sometimes there's just another paper waiting right underneath. So you can never truly plan around trying to deny your opponent something, unlike in the Seven Wonders original game where you can take something not only to keep it for yourself, but to keep your opponent from getting it. But at the very same time, it means that the game is actually really smooth and easy to play because you've only ever got 3 choices, and the choices that you have are usually relatively obvious. Like, I don't really want the cat, I've already got the cat. I don't really need the paper. I could go for something that gives me an extra research symbol so I can start building up these and getting myself some extra card plays or maybe some extra points depending on where the other one of these tokens are. Whoops. Because this token gives you extra points if you have both of them, and 12 points in this game is a lot, trust me. So there is a little bit of flexibility, there is a little bit of room to try and go down one strategy and then redirect to another strategy if you can, but of course that does get let down by the randomness, so it's not as in-depth as that may sound, but it is still enjoyable on a game-to-game basis. With that said, the randomness still can come back to bite you. You might find yourself not being able to do anything except one strategy, and then a player on the other side of the table who simply just got better luck than you and you have absolutely no control over might win purely through the luck of the draw. This isn't a low randomness Euro in any way whatsoever. But with that said, considering that I was originally someone, when I played my first game of Seven Wonders Duel and the original Seven Wonders, both times I was kind of overwhelmed because there's a lot to think about in terms of, in Seven Wonders Duel at least, taking your turn and trying to wiggle up the turn order, getting a resource without trying to reveal too many resources to your opponent. And then in Seven Wonders, you have to worry about what the players to your left and right are doing. So you have to look through this massive hand of cards, try and think ahead to what they're doing, and take cards that will not only benefit you, but be a detriment to them by leaving them with some unusable crap, right? And as a result, those games can be incredibly complicated. So if you just want to introduce someone to the concepts of Seven Wonders without overwhelming them too much, this game's great. Genuinely, you just have three choices, but you still have multiple ways to victory, whether that be a lot of research helping you out, a lot of standalone points, trying to build up your wonder, or trying to build up your combat and trying to get as many fights going as humanly possible. And it's not like each approach doesn't have its own downsides as well. Like with building up your wonder, you need to get a lot of resources together in order to get those later stages going. With point cards, they're generally the least efficient way to earn points in the entire game, so you need to be drawing a lot of them for all of them to have any effect. Research is balanced out by the fact that you can't get anything except the 3 out in front of you or 1 off the top of the mystery deck. And combat is balanced out by the fact that even with a really powerful set of combats, you're not going to be able to get more than 2 or 3 fights in per game on average, so you can't rely on any one of these strategies entirely, and that's where the really nice idea of the balance lies. It makes the game interesting, but at the same time, it's a bit random and a bit simple, so if you end up playing it a lot, the game will end up being a fair bit repetitive. Even with the technologies drawn from the top of the deck and the fact that every individual wonder has their own unique effect, it can just get a bit repetitive if you play it a bit too much and a bit short of a time frame. However, with that said, I never really say no to a game of it, because there's always a little bit of a different thing to be thinking about. You're always going to have a little bit of a different wonder, different options available to you, and it does at least keep the decision space open enough and interesting enough that as long as they don't end up playing it 3 times over the course of 3 weeks, it ends up maintaining a bit of interest in just the strategies you need to think about and the way that you need to go. It's not something that I would personally buy, considering that I've got a board game shelf this big with way more advanced games I need to worry about. But with that said, if anyone ever offered me a game of it, I'd never say no, because it is enjoyable enough as it is. The strategy is there, even if there is a big walloping of randomness, and even if it's just a little bit too thin on the ground to hold up over too many repeat plays over a short course of time. If you've been watching my videos long enough, you'll know that I'm actually a bit of a stickler on box space and box size, and I'm happy to report that Seven Wonders Architects gets an A+ from me in this regard, because not only are the game trays incredibly simple to unpack from the box and set up the game without having to think too much about it, it also fills the box almost to the brim, and so therefore the box is just big enough to hold everything in it without being too obnoxious about either being too big or having too much inside it for the game that you're trying to play. So I'll give it an absolute thumbs up for that box design. And for a simpler version of an established game, you'll need a simple manual, and thankfully the manual holds up in this respect as well. It's got very little that you need to worry about, it's laid out very nicely so that you won't make any mistakes, it's got everything you need to know in nice, clear and understandable language, and it just does the job fine, and not to mention there's a good reference on the back, so I don't hate the manual either. In fact, I like it quite a lot. It does exactly what it needs to do. Final opinions, I like it. It's simple, it does have room for some strategy, it is a bit random and a bit thin on the ground, so don't go playing it too much, and it's not something that I would personally buy, just because A, someone else already has a copy of it, and it's not the most complex game in the world, but it's short, because games usually clock in at like 30 minutes to an hour, so it never feels like it outstays its welcome. It has enough strategy, it's simple enough that it doesn't overwhelm you and introduces you to the idea of Seven Wonders. And just the box packs really well, the manual's really simple, and it's just a very elegant and slipstreamed version of the Seven Wonders concepts. And it does fine as a result. I like it. While I wouldn't go out and buy this myself, if you ever get the opportunity to play it, you should. It's a good time. This has been Blue Maxima. I'll see you all next time.